People think heartbreak begins the day someone leaves. It doesn't. Sometimes, heartbreak begins much earlier, on the day you choose not to listen, not to the trembling in someone's voice, not to the silence between their words, not to the wind changing direction over the sea. I learned that the hard way. In a town where the ocean always knew what was coming before we did, and the man I loved, he knew how to read its language. I didn't, not until it was too late. My name is Claire Bennett, and I hadn't been back to Harbor Point in 11 years. Not since I was 24, not since I left behind a love I thought I had outgrown. I came back because my father died in February, leaving me his weathered little house on the cliff, a place I once called home. A place filled with salt air, creaking floorboards, and the kind of memories that wait for you in silence. By then I was 35, divorced, exhausted, and raising my 9-year-old son, Oliver, on my own. I told myself this move was practical, affordable, temporary, necessary. But deep down, I knew the truth. I had come back because some part of me was still unfinished here. My name is Claire Bennett, and I was back. His name was Eli Turner. I met him the summer after college, when I still believed life could be planned. Eli didn't believe in straight roads. He believed in tides, instincts, and watching the sky before making promises. He repaired boats with his father, played old records at night, and spoke about the ocean with reverence. The first thing he ever said to me was, "You can tell tomorrow's weather by the color of the sunset." I laughed. He didn't. Then he smiled in that quiet, patient way and said, "One day, you'll see what I mean." We didn't fall in love dramatically. There was no grand entrance, no impossible coincidence, no fireworks exploding over the harbor. We fell in love the real way, in ordinary moments, in paper cups of coffee on cold mornings, in long walks, in the way he always noticed when I was pretending to be okay. Eli taught me how to hear the world differently. He would stop mid-conversation and say, "Listen," and I'd hear nothing. Then, slowly, I'd notice it. The shift in the gulls, the strange stillness before rain, the restless waves before a storm. To him, nature was language, but I was young, ambitious, and deeply afraid of a life that couldn't be measured by promotions or windows. I told myself I loved Eli, but not enough to stay, not enough to choose the uncertain life he offered. So when a job opened in Boston, I took it. And when Eli asked if I was really leaving, I said something cruel. I told him he was too rooted in a small town, too sentimental, too tied to old ways. I was terrified. What I meant was this: I was terrified of needing something I could not control. Loving Eli felt like that. The last time I saw him, the wind was sharp and cold. He looked like someone trying not to break. "Claire," he said, "you don't have to stay for me, but don't lie to yourself about why you're leaving." I remembered hating him for saying that, because he was right. So I did what proud people do. I lied harder. I left the next morning. He told me, "One day life will ask you to listen." And for years, I pretended I had won. Oliver loved Harbor Point immediately. He loved the cliffs, the sea glass, the gulls at the pier. One evening, he asked me the kind of question only children ask. "Mom, where does the wind go when it leaves us?" I laughed softly, but I couldn't answer. Then he asked, "How many places are left for birds to hide in storms?" Something inside me went still, because years ago, Eli used to ask questions like that, simple yet deep. I felt ashamed of how little I had learned. Questions that opened rooms inside your chest you didn't know were there. A week later, I found Eli's name in the library. He had started the Coastal Watch volunteer program 6 years ago. There were photos everywhere, Eli with children in rain boots, Eli holding driftwood maps, rebuilding dunes. The librarian said, "Eli talked about you once. He said you were the smartest person he knew, just not a listener yet." I didn't know whether to smile or cry. I just stood there, staring at the evidence of a life bigger than I imagined. It was Noah, an old fisherman, who finally told me. Eli had died 2 years earlier during a winter rescue. A tourist couple had ignored the storm. Eli went out. They saved them, but the water turned faster than expected. Noah said he knew the risk, but if nature speaks, we've got a duty to listen and to protect the people who don't. I stood there without breath. The wind moved through me, like grief had finally found its open door. I was home. That night, I found a letter tucked inside one of my father's books. My hand shook before I even opened it. If this reaches you, life has circled back. I used to think loving someone meant convincing them to stay. Now I think it means hoping they become fully themselves, even if you don't get to witness it. You weren't heartless, just afraid. If you come back, don't come for guilt. Come ready to listen to your son, to the sea, to yourself. At the bottom, he had written, "Take care of the world. It is speaking to us all the time." I finally understood. Grief is strange. It doesn't always destroy you. Sometimes it introduces you to the person you were meant to become. I stayed in Harbor Point longer than I planned. Then I stopped calling it temporary. I joined the Coastal Watch. I taught children how to document shoreline changes, how to respect warning signs, and that the earth isn't separate. Oliver loved every minute of it. And every time he looked up with wonder instead of worry, I felt something mend. People think romance ends when the person is gone, but it doesn't. Sometimes love continues as instruction. I still think of Eli when the sun goes copper at the horizon, when the tide pulls back too far before a storm. There are days I miss him so sharply it feels physical. And there are nights I sit on the porch and speak to him, not because I believe the dead return, but because love leaves habits behind, and mine is still telling him things. A month later, a hard storm came. This time, I recognized the signs before the alert. The unnatural warmth, pressure. Oliver noticed it too. "Mom," he whispered, "the sea sounds different." I looked at him and smiled through tears. Yes, we helped our neighbors secure their homes. We checked on families. And when the storm hit, I didn't feel helpless. I felt connected, responsible, awake. For the first time, I understood what Eli had tried to teach me. Nature is conversation. The morning after the storm, the sky is clearing in layers of brilliant gold and soft pink. The sea is finally calm. I looked out where light scattered across the waves like forgiveness. And this time, I answered, "Yes, everything alive does." Love is not only about who stays, it's also about what they leave inside you, a way of seeing, a way of caring, a way of telling the truth before disaster arrives. And if we are wise enough to listen to the earth, to each other, to the quiet warnings in our own hearts, maybe that is how we save what still can be saved. Listen, just listen. The tides have changed, but the message remains. Harbor Point is home, and the world is finally speaking to me.